So hello everybody and welcome to our webinar outreach program presentation sponsored by the Division of Human Resources here at UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. The goal of this program is to engage with professionals, experts, specialists on a monthly basis and provide some targeted information on how you too can contribute to protecting people forced to flee wars and persecution. The presentation today focuses on optimizing your job applications for UNHCR. First, let's get to meet some of our speakers. Let's move on to Dora and then Nita, who will introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here today. My name is Dora Csordes, and I'm a recruitment associate focused on talent outreach for external audiences. I am based in Budapest, Hungary, and my role is the promotion of UNHCR as an employer of choice, as well as I'm helping the Division of Human Resources identify, engage, and ultimately hire niche professionals, women, and nationals of less represented countries, as well as other individuals needed for positions not filled by internal talent. Over to you, Nita.
Thanks, Dori. Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to see all of you sending lovely messages and encouragements. Thank you so much. Very happy to be here with you all today. My name is Nita Dörci. I'm a senior recruitment associate focusing on identifying and processing best qualified candidates for international temporary roles within UNHCR. I am very passionate about matching the right person to the right job. As you may know, recruiting is about being able to connect with others. In my role, I search for the best suited candidates for each role and serve as liaison between the hiring managers and the candidates. Now let's continue with other participants. Margarida.
Hello, everyone. My name is Margarida Loureiro. I am the head of sub-office here in Cabo Delgado, the northern part of Mozambique. Today, as a hiring manager, I am here to provide you some insight on what colleagues typically look for in applicants and how you can best prepare to make it easier for recruiters such as Nita and Dora and myself to pick your specific application out of hundreds, if not thousands of applications we receive for positions. So my role in this chat will be more not so technical, I believe, but also what is the added value? How can you tailor your experience and your skills to the specific job that you are applying? Over to you, Gustavo.
Very well said, and thanks again to Margarida, to Nita, and to Dora for participating in this. It's really, really very exciting to see your dedication to finding the right people to join UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. My name is Gustavo Araújo, and I'm the head of partnerships and talent outreach here at UNHCR. And I'm very glad to report that we had over 5,000 people register for this webinar. So that's quite a sizable number of people interested in the organization. I know most of you may not be able to attend live because of differences in time zones. So some of you will be listening to the recording, which you will be receiving via email as promised. So thanks again for your interest in the organization, and we're looking forward to adding value to your experience as an applicant. The first thing we're going to do is actually go over to the agenda. So Dora, why don't you tell us a little more about what we are covering today?
Thanks, Gustavo. So today we will cover the best ways to optimize your job application for UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. Please know that these best practice tips may come in handy when you are applying for positions at other United Nations organizations as well, for an added bonus. First, we will start with planning your application. Then we will cover understand the job description, which is an important aspect of preparing oneself to apply. Next up, we will focus on how applicants can best describe their past experiences in order to provide evidence of alignment to recruiters and hiring managers. And last but not least, We will give you some hints on how to write cover letters or a statement of interest in the positions, followed, of course, by a brief Q&A session. And now let's jump right in and let's get started on the first part of our presentation. The application planning step is very important, so you can target your efforts to positions which you are most likely to be competitive. One mistake many applicants makes is to submit applications all over the place across multiple areas of expertise, expecting that luck may strike someday. While luck could play a role in the process, it is by targeting your applications that you will build confidence in your ability to elaborate how your skills and abilities may be a match to some or many of our positions. Over to you, Nita.
Thank you, Dori. So the first thing to do is to research before applying. But what does that mean in practice? You can ask yourself the following questions at the early application stage when considering positions at UNHCR. Dora may has a few tips on how to prepare.
All right, so checking around the profiles of individuals who already perform these duties may be advantageous, as it may give you some perspective on the type of profile typically hired. If you do not find your profile among the individuals hired, don't despair. This does not mean you should give up, but it should serve as motivation for you to further elaborate on how your skills and abilities make you a match for the position of interest.
So could you, Dora, tell us a little bit about the 2 questions to ask as in the slides?
Sorry?
The 2 questions that you see on the slides, could you actually read them out so people can see the questions one should ask oneself?
Oh, for sure. So you should ask yourself the following questions. What's the job market for the position? Also, how do I stand out from the competition? And what is the typical background of individuals who already hold these positions?
Exactly, so that you can get a developed understanding of how you compare with potential competition, but also how you stack up in providing information on the skills and abilities that you have that would be a fit. Let's move on to the next one, Nita. Nita, you probably also have other questions.
All right, Gustavo, thank you. So the 2 important questions that you might want to ask yourselves are, what are the main activities performed by the incumbent and the team? And is this the right fit for me? Dora, what else do you have in mind?
So beyond asking yourself these questions, we also want you to understand the typical mistakes applicants make when completing applications in the system. Nita will provide details. For example, do I meet the minimum requirements? Is it really enough to meet the minimum requirements to be invited into the process? Do I have the relevant skills and experience to perform well on the position?
Very good. Then we're going to get back. I'm sorry to interrupt, Dora. I missed the notes here. We're going to get back to you very soon to you guys on that, on the importance of not just considering the minimum requirements when applying for positions. Dora, take it back. I'm sorry about that.
So I was just going to give actually the word to Nita, my colleague, who is a very experienced recruiter, and she has worked in multiple industries, including oil and gas prior to joining UNHCR, and she's going to share some insights.
Thanks so much, Dori. So yes, basically, I'd like to introduce you to some of the more typical mistakes made by applicants. After this, we will show you information and conduct some exercise with you to work on each of these items so you can feel prepared when you apply next time. So we call it Recruiter's Corner. And one of the issues that we face is with the letter of interest. You might call it as a cover letter, being blank or very, very brief. As you see, that's the intro to an organization when one reads your application. So very important that it's properly filled. The education information when not using the drop-down menu when selecting university, not listing the type of degrees, the country of studies, or the end date of the study and other relevant information. or perhaps you're not explaining employment gaps. Spelling, grammatical errors, especially important when you apply to roles within communications and such profiles where the language skills are crucially important. Failing to tailor applications to the knowledge, skills, qualifications listed in the job description. And last but not least, failing to improvise the application, updating your applications with new experiences, skills, real references, strength. Well, this more applies to talent pool profiles.
Very good, Nita. What else would you tell us about understanding the job description?
Right. So one important component of applying it to fully understand the job description is going beyond the minimum requirements. You can leverage this information throughout your application to demonstrate fit. Dora is going to show us some important information next.
That's right. So this is really good information. So think about the following areas in this pyramid, which is a little bit upside down, but it's still a good pyramid. So as you can see, qualifications, experience, and language skills are at the bottom. What does this mean? This means that most people considering this position may meet the requirements. Moving upwards on the pyramid, which is actually in the middle on our screen, we find competencies and expertise. Some of the individuals possess the minimum requirements and also the competencies and expertise needed to do well on the job. However, on the top, we find duties and responsibilities.
Exactly. So you can look at this pyramid and think about that as a funnel as well, right? As you see, qualifications and experience required. A lot of people complain that, well, I was never invited for an interview, but I met the minimum requirements. Minimum requirements are minimum requirements. Minimum requirements are minimum requirements are minimum requirements. Meeting the minimum requirements does not necessarily mean that people should move forward in the process. Why? Because one also must show that he or she has had experience in the competencies and expertise as needed to conduct the job well. And how do you do that? By properly articulating how your past duties and responsibilities make you align to the position you are applying for, or that you have transferable skills, or your learning curve won't be too steep. And we're going to get into that with details very soon. In the meantime, Dora, why don't you tell us a little more?
All right, so as you can see from typical job descriptions at UNHCR, the minimum requirements typically include educational background, a minimum level of experience in specific areas, and some languages or even required certifications. Now let's run an exercise with Gustavo to help you better understand the job description itself.
All right, many thanks, Dora. Here's a typical position that you may find across field operations, right? It's an associate project control officer, okay? And the exercise that I want us to think about is exactly this. In your understanding, what would be the minimum requirements for an associate project control officer P2? If you can enter in the screen on your chat box, what type of educational background would you consider this individual to need to have? Or how many years of experience? Or what type of relevant experiences? I want to hear from as many of you as possible. Again, just enter your understanding of the types of backgrounds that would be useful for this. Some folks are saying auditing, some folks are saying minimum undergrad, some folks are saying 2 to 4 years of experience, some folks are saying humanitarian work experience, internal control. Any more? Bachelor's degree. It's really important that you understand the types of requirements in the UN system, particularly at UNHCR, for the type of position you are applying. Before looking at beyond looking at the minimum requirements, it's also important that you pay attention to the duties and responsibilities. Look at the duties and responsibilities that you see on this page for this particular job description. We have lots of action verbs, right? Dora, would you mind reading out for me the action verbs that are in yellow?
I'm sorry, I was
That's
on
okay.
mute.
That's fine. Could you read the?
So here we go with the action word. Participate, review, formulate and implement. Again, participate, support, track.
Thank you, Dora. So as you can see, there are lots of action verbs indicating the actions that individuals are taking. Individuals who are expected to perform well on these positions. There are more in the duties and responsibilities, and we're looking at that with you exactly to make sure that you understand. Dora, could you read some more of these action verbs for us?
Okay, here we go. Undertake, monitor, track, verify, conduct, provide, prepare, carry out, advise.
Exactly. So one important thing for you is the following. As you are preparing your applications for a position, you need to look at the duties and responsibilities yourself, again, going beyond the minimum requirements, and try to establish how many of these activities have I engaged in myself in my previous positions. If your answer is, I have never done any of that, most likely you're not a fit for the position because part of the recruitment process entails identifying individuals who has had opportunities to demonstrate the competencies associated to the job. So one thing that's really important is action verbs. Dora, could you tell us more about that?
For
Dora,
sure.
sorry guys, can I just stop you for a second? I'm
Of course.
following the messages as well from our lovely participants, and
Okay.
I just want to say that unfortunately you do not have a speaking opportunity. You can only type in the chat. I'm so sorry, Mintazar. I see that you've asked in a question if you could speak to us. Unfortunately, on this platform, it is not possible.
Thank you, Nita. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I wasn't able to see it. So yeah, you can ask questions using the chat box at the end of the presentation, okay? So going back, Dora, can you tell us a little more about the importance of action verbs?
For sure, Gustavo. So action verbs are used to convey the main activities engaged in by the incumbent. What action verbs do you choose to describe your own past experience? It matters.
Exactly. And it's also showing what you do in the job. It's not just about the action verbs, right? It's important that you understand what the duties and responsibilities entail. I know that I had Dora read, for example, the action verbs before, like participate, review, formulate, and implement. Participate, support, track. But what is it that's done? Participate in the annual assessment and planning cycle. Review that project agreements are in conformity with country operation plans. Formulate and implement a performance project monitoring plan. So this is for you to really pay attention to the duties and responsibilities to make sure that you understand the type of position and what it entails. If we really look at the next slide as well, we had some other action verbs: undertake, monitor, track, and verify, conduct, provide, prepare, carry out. It's important that you understand as well. Undertake what? Undertake missions within the geographical area of responsibility. Have you done something like that? Yes. Please describe using very similar words. Have you not done something like that? Okay. What are the transferable skills that you may have that may be relevant for that particular activity? Again, you need to go beyond just looking at the minimum requirements and make it clear to the recruiter and to the hiring manager that you have relevant experience for the role. Hence the importance of this exercise. Okay, let's go back to Nita now. What else do you find important, Nita?
Right. And before I get to it, Gustavo, just a concern from one of the participants asking the question that he or she can only see the messages between the panelists and him or herself. Is it possible that the chat is restricted and actually the participants cannot see the messages in between the participants and the host?
It is
And
not restricted during the presentation, but the recording, it will be restricted, and the recording will not have the list of participants or any messages in. So for the recording, we'll only have the slides and our voices.
yeah, right. Okay.
Okay, so
All
moving
right.
forward, Go ahead.
All right, thanks. So basically, to fully assess what is expected of the incumbent in terms of day-to-day activities and start mapping out how your experience may align with tasks and responsibilities described.
Very good, Nita. And we all know that there could be differences in application patterns. What would you tell us about that?
Right. So, yes, thank you. So research has indicated that overall men and women may behave differently when completing job applications or putting themselves forward for promotion. For example, one study conducted at a large private sector organization in North America revealed that women working at HP applied for promotion only when they believed they met 100% of the qualifications listed for the job. Men, however, were happy to apply when they thought they could meet 60% of the job requirements. How smart. Obviously, there is a great variety of beliefs, cultures, and standards across our member state, but we would like to bring this topic up so you can use this information when considering applications for any positions. Now, let's learn more from an outstanding colleague, Margarita, who has worked many roles both inside and outside UNHCR, and who is now a head of office in a field operation. Lovely Margarita, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I am not going to put my video, maybe just to say hi, so everyone can see me. Oi, trying, at least. So hello, my name is Margarida Loureiro, and as my colleagues were saying, I'm going to give you the perspective from the hiring manager, no? When I sit in a panel, what I want to hear and what I expect from an outstanding candidate, as I'm sure many of you are. I am now going to make a small introduction, as many probably are curious, and so I'm Margarida. I'm originally from Lisbon, Portugal, and unlike what many assume, UNHCR was not on my radar when I was growing up, when I became a lawyer, but it did shape my academic development years on when I opted to refresh my brain, pursue masters in public and international law, focusing very much on conflict, post-conflict settings. So I always advise people to continue refreshing their brains and studying and improving their terminologies, updating themselves. As Anita was saying, I was not always with UNHCR. In fact, I experimented quite a bit. After university, I started working in the private sector. I was managing human resources, not really my call. So I left the country, I went to Asia, volunteered with an NGO, working with serious crimes, research, analysis. And this was, in fact, this volunteer experience was my front gate to the United Nations and later to UNHCR. I tried UNHCR as a JPO, a junior professional officer, for 3 years. Then I left the organization. I worked with the UNDP, the United Nations Development Agency, for another 3 years. I did some UN peacekeeping, and in between these experiences with the UN, I tried another NGO focused very much on refugee status determination and resettlement of refugees, because I knew UNHCR was that agency that I related with the most. And then I also worked with the foreign governments, supporting civil service and security sector reforms. So you see, what some people thought it was my leaps of faith were in fact essential steps to decide what I truly loved, and that's why I'm here. But also to build on my skills and my abilities, which I will talk in a few minutes. So my experience in emergencies, in difficult settings, my protection background and experience in external relations, interagency, was what brought me here to Mozambique, my current post, to manage and lead the operation in Cabo Delgado. It is a managerial role. in an armed conflict setting that affects 1.3 million persons, 800,000 of which are forcibly displaced. And what does this mean? What is my role in this conflict and in this operation? I am here to basically ensure that all UNHCR colleagues and UNHCR partners in the operation that I am leading have the means to put in place their skills, their expertise to ensure the provision of protection services and humanitarian assistance to both the internally displaced, but also to the host communities in a very principled, dignified, safe, and sustainable manner. So this is my role. No, I'm not so much operational as I was in previous years. I completely love operations, that's why I'm in the field. But I am here to provide the space for those with the skills to literally flourish and give their best. And this is what I love about my job. And this is what I'm trying to get from others when I'm sitting in panels, is see where is the passion? Where is your love for the specific job you are applying? So what I love is the opportunity to mainstream principled protection, to ensure that our people of concern, being internally displaced, refugees, asylum seekers, statelessness, or a mixed situation of refugees and migrants, that they use their resilience to move forward, to remind them that their dignity is never lost despite challenges, and that we are there to support, to protect, and that life continues to be the most precious human right. This is what I'm so passionate about UNHCR, one of the few agencies that is in fact on the ground on a daily basis, directly working with the communities, to the communities. It is a unique privilege. So we do everything from bottom up. And that is very much a characteristic of a protection agency like UNHCR. So I believe, Gustavo, we are going to another slide.
Very good. And thank you very much for those words. They're very inspiring. Really shows the type of motivation and engagement that we look in people. So thank you for that. Next
Yes.
slide is
So
there.
when you are dissecting the job description, there are 3 questions you may want to keep in mind when doing this analysis. So let's go for the first. The first would be, how can I show that I have direct, relevant experience? So what is my added value here? Are you applying to a field position, never having set foot outside of an office? It can happen. But maybe, and this is where you have to dissect. You organized several activities when you were at uni campus, or you volunteered like I did to start my path in some organization. Still, how can you bring added value, in this case as a hiring manager, to my team specifically, to my operation? What have you read about it? Then you uh, made it in a way that I can see that you are special to the specific operation that you are applying for. Remember, I am not just looking for a person, again, as a hiring manager, to fill a role. There are thousands that can fill the role. There are thousands with fabulous degrees. I am searching for the person that can make the role, someone that has a vision and that I trust will complement the rest of the operation and make it smoother and more innovative and creative. For instance, I know, and I have been asked many times, how do I start going to the field if I was always sitting at a desk or working at headquarters? Well, maybe your desk activity is actually a gem, because maybe you have the ability to monitor, to evaluate, to report what you see on the ground, to multitask under pressing deadlines, and to actively listen and adapt very quickly to help colleagues achieve their objectives. So what are the competencies that when you are dissecting the application, what are the competencies triggered there in the application? And in the operational context, always open, always click. When you apply, there's always a little box, say, for more operational context. Click there. It's very, very important, because what you see usually is the standard competencies. So the operational context is very important. And then think outside of the box, please, because that makes an impression. So this is the first. No, how can I show that I have direct relevance experience, and what is my added value? Then second question you would want to keep in mind, and I'll give you my own example, one of many, but I think it's more recent. So UNHCR works and often leads large-scale emergencies. So how can you show that you can hit the ground running? How quick are you to adapt? How multifaceted are you to operational shifts and needs? This is so important. And again, it's going to feed on the third question, but let's come to the second one. So I'll give you an example. I was working in Lebanon, and all of a sudden, and I was not working as a protection officer, but I landed in Lunda Norte in less than 1 month notice to work as a protection officer. Lunda Norte is in the north of Angola, borders the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kasai province. Kasai was in an extremely violent conflict. We were 5 kilometers from the conflict border. And all of a sudden, in 1 week time, we had dozens of thousands of persons entering through a very small border. So many people were severely wounded. Everybody was in shock, extremely traumatized. And there I was a new protection officer. I just literally landed and needed to hit the ground running. The day I landed, I was tired, of course, but I set up my office, a tent. So I determined my space in the most packed reception center, working along with registration teams. I was going, introducing myself, looking where MSF, Doctors Without Borders, were making referrals to relevant services. And these, I said to everyone, I'm here. My tasks were very well defined, or so I thought, but then this is where the operational shifts happen in an emergency, and they happen quite often. Then the environment rapidly changed. Public perception of these refugees fleeing for their lives from Congo, from Kasai, the public perception was deteriorating at a very rapid pace. And their protection risks were therefore heightened. No, they were not only running from their lives, but now they also had to face a very heavy look from the public opinion, and that does not only endanger them, but the operation as a whole, and not just UNHCR, but every responder that is there to support and to protect and to assist. So in less than a month again of my arrival, I adapted to the operational pressing needs and took over external relations, reporting, public information, and interagency coordination. Okay, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a journalist, but I knew I had these transferable skills that I'm going to talk in a few minutes to support the team doing that. So I was tasked to deal with very aggressive media. I spoke the language, which helped. I liaised with several stakeholders to include government, partners, donors that were really not knowing what was going on. And then I coordinated the interagency forum, which later made me the spokesperson, not only for UNHCR, but for the whole emergency in the different external forums representing all UN agencies. Why did I do this? And people were asking me, but you are a protection officer. It's the mandate. were you forced, were you pressed to become an external relations person, to become a PI, a public information person? I said, no, this was a need and I could feel it. And this allowed me to allow other colleagues to focus solely in the response and not be constantly buzzed by all these people coming around. That now everybody knew where to go, and that was myself. So I used communication, one of my transferable skills. I used communication as a protection tool, and in the end, we were all protecting, and we were all under the same mandate, which is a principled response, where the perception of refugees and where the perception of everyone's work in an emergency is safeguarded, and it's transparent, and everybody that asks questions gets their answers. So this is the second, no? What is your ability to hit the ground running? Are you adaptable to these kind of emergencies? Remember, although UNHCR works in many areas, we are leading large-scale emergencies, so adaptability. And then how can you shift according to the operational needs? Now, this brings me to the third question you should have in mind when you are dissecting that application. How do I show that I have potential transferable skills? And these, as you've noticed, I've been talking about a few. So transferable skills give you a competitive edge amongst the thousands of applications. I always tailor, when you apply, and as Gustavo and Dora was saying, well, people applied and they complained, they never called, because we need to see what is special about you. So you need to tailor your skills to the role you're applying for. It's a lot of work. It's easier to just pick one that is similar and then adapt slightly, but then maybe we also know that you've done that. So whether you're moving on to a new role or to a new inside, the organization, or into a totally new job with UNHCR, you're never truly starting from scratch. And this is what you have to believe in, your own skills, and be able to sell yourself. You have a fantastic tool belt. When you go to the construction and you have this tool belt, yeah, so you carry this tool belt with you when you go and look at an application. And then you look at your own foundation of key skills that serve you in this specific role. And this is what is going to give you a leg up on the competition. Some of the transferable skills are hard skills, like some of them mentioned before by my colleagues. Your technical abilities and all that. Your degrees. This is all very good. And then some, my favorite, I have to say, are your soft skills, the ones that you pick up throughout life, the ones that make you a great team member. So I'm going to give you a few examples of transferable skills. Mostly, my favorites are soft. So I'm going to start with communication and emotional intelligence, EQ, no? I don't separate one from the other. Communication and emotional intelligence skills are the bread and butter of your skills tool belt, let's say. It's important to know how to express yourself, your ideas, and then you need to listen actively, no? Listen with intent. It showcases also your level of empathy. It is where your emotional intelligence comes forward. Not only how you manage your own emotions, but your ability to perceive how others are feeling. Remember, this is the United Nations. There are so many cultures. You work with so many different colleagues from so many backgrounds that you need this EQ. You need to be able to communicate and then My second favorite, well, not in specific order, but a transferable skill, you need to adapt. No, creativity and adaptability. I don't separate them either. They come hand in hand. Change, and as I told you before, is almost inevitable in emergencies. UNHCR works in emergencies most of the time, 99% of the time. So when I'm reading your application, don't just tell me you are creative and adapt easily. Show it to me. Be descriptive. How have you adjusted in a stressful situation? What were your innovative approaches, and what was the impact? Also, impact is very important. Sometimes people put their TORs, which is fantastic, what they did in the past, but sometimes the TORs are not so important if I don't see the results or the impact of what these TORs meant, no? So your creative stance and what you learn from it is often where I go and I highlight. Okay, this person seems to communicate well, seems what I read, there's an EQ, there's creativity, the person adapted. Again, it can be, if you have a lot of experience, well, great. But if you don't have a lot of experience still, remember that's not gonna put you back or leave you behind. We leave no one behind. You can use what you have done at university, or in your neighborhood organization when you were volunteering. It's all valid, no? Then
It is
this,
excellent, Margarida.
I'm almost
Go ahead.
finishing.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm almost finishing. So aside from communication, creativity, and adaptability, then this is what I meant, teamwork. We are in this together. As a hiring manager, and depending on the setting, I often value more your ability to create harmonious relationships and collaboration at work than your immediate technical skill, which of course needs to be there, but I'm reading you. So these latter are very important, but again, it takes one to disrupt the whole team. So teamwork is very important transferable skill that you need to show. And then of course, your analytical ability, your analytical skills, the ability to use logic, to apply critical thinking, to think, fast pace, and then draw informed conclusions, to effectively and as a team solve issues. And this is how I would see the potential transferable skills. Gustavo, over to you. And I'm so sorry I get enthusiastic.
No, this is actually the most important part of the presentation. I just wanted to add on to what you said and not interrupt you, but what I think that Margarida is also alluding to is the following. Again, beyond looking at the minimum requirements, looking at how you can show a hiring manager and recruiters your ability to add value by emphasizing your alignment of your past experiences to the job that you want, emphasizing
Exactly.
your ability to hit the ground running or to have a not as steep learning curve, and emphasizing your transferable skills. So some of you may be saying, hey, this is easier said than done, right? So what we're going to do right now is actually show you how to do that step by step. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to teach you how to conduct a self-assessment. And this is what we call a T exercise. So what is this? We're going to conduct you an assessment of how much a fit of you are for the position. And this is called, again, the T technique, the T table. The first thing you need to do is look at UNHCR needs versus your past experiences. So let's look at an example here. Let's say that for a specific position or multiple positions, some of the needs include, number one, designing an outreach and partnership strategy and establishing partnerships. Or for another type of position, develop advanced child protection learning initiatives and foundational e-learning modules. Or for another type of position, conduct regular missions and assessments, providing gender inclusive security advice, training, and coaching. So this is what you have when it comes to the needs of the organization, right? It's also your job to actually tell us how you meet each of these needs. And you see here on one side to the left, needs of the organization versus to the right, my professional experience in which someone is trying to align one by one. As you can see here, there is a different gradation of yellows, meaning that the darkest yellow means that you meet the most in commonality with the tasks and responsibilities asked by the organization. Lighter yellow means that you have done something that's similar, that shows your transferable skills, that shows your abilities, but it's not fully. And the light yellow mentions potential, meaning you may not have had full-blown experience with that, but you may have some experience that may be relevant. So let's take a look at number one. Identify, establish, and maintain contacts with relevant peers in UN agencies and other humanitarian organizations. For the person applying for this position, feeling that it is a really good match, he or she described like this: contributed to UN working group on the development of strategies and policies to identify, engage, and hire diverse talent. In other words, you're trying to align what you've done in the past with what's being asked. If you have difficulty aligning what you've done in the past with a job, it's probably not a job for you. Let's go to the second one. Preparing substantive and financial reports and liaising with donors as required. You see, it's a lighter shade of yellow. So look at that. Collected information from diverse stakeholders to support in the creation of the report. So here you're telling me that even though you haven't prepared it yourself, you have had experience in collecting information. So you were part of the process. You're not claiming anything that you haven't done. The last one, representing and delivering presentations in formal and informal fora, meetings and discussions inside and outside the organization as requested. Here, the very light yellow, no experience, but comfortable with presenting in front of audiences as currently possess client-facing positions. Again, you're always making the link between what the organization needs and what you have done in the past or your potential and transferable skills. Okay? Let's go back to thinking about describing your past experiences. And Margarita has given us a lot of good tips, but I think Nita can really nail that in the head by telling you 5 things you could do to help yourself. Go ahead, Nita.
Thanks, Gustavo, and thanks, Margarita. So in applications for UNHCR, your goal is to show alignment between the role you are applying and the jobs and experiences that you've had in the past. The way to do so is to show evidence of fit by highlighting how your previous experience makes you a good candidate for the position. It is very important to be strategic when doing so. For example, when describing your achievement, mention the positive results. In other words, the impact of your activities on the team, unit, department, and the organization overall. How did you contribute positively to your previous employer? What did you learn and what did you achieve? We understand that at times it may be difficult for many applicants from member states to use terms such as I accomplished, I did, I achieved. However, application reviewers need to see how your experience shows that you can contribute to the organization at the expected level. A good trick, though, may be to quantify some of these achievements. For example, if you are a trainer, let us know how many training programs do you typically run in a month or perhaps a year? What is the type of complexity and how to many people? What are the topics? How aligned are the topics to the themes covered by UNHCR? We will show you a few examples very soon. If you or your team have received awards and accolades, mention them as well. This supports your claim of a positive impact. Add these types of relevant experiences and skills that you've acquired over time and how you could or how they could actually relate to the positions. All in all, I think the best way to use this section in applications for UNHCR or any other organizations for that matter is to show how you, to show your impact.
Very, very good, Nita. This is exactly what Margarida mentioned to us by giving personal examples of her experience. And here we have, obviously, we don't like formulas. Formulas don't necessarily lead people to achieving much depending on what they're looking for. A lot of the times people just apply for positions willy-nilly and they're not being strategic. So here we are presenting you some ways in which you can be strategic, okay? And we do have some examples as well on how you can do that. Dora, could you please give us a brief example of how someone can describe their experiences?
Oh, sure. Here we go. So, and this is an example on describing one's achievement by letting us know your impact. Let me read it for you. Coordinated public health projects, including reproductive health, nutrition, and HIV activities in support of local government responses and in conjunction with other UN agencies, NGOs, and partners, worked with development actors to ensure delivery of public health services to beneficiaries, POC and host community, met nationally recognized and up-to-date standards and policies. Well, it's quite a mouthful, so I'll give you 15 seconds to also just read it on your own, just to have it really sink in. Okay. So I think we can go to the next example because I also would like to show you another example, which is presenting quantitative data and timelines to emphasize impact. So let's see. Developed over 10 advanced child protection learning initiatives, including child-friendly procedures, best interest procedures for specific groups of children, supervised independent living. Again, let me give you just a couple of seconds to read it, read this example on your own again before we move on. All right, and we will show you yet another example. And Nita, if you could please present it.
Thanks, Dory. Yeah, well, let's see another example of using quantification of achievements to highlight your impact, just by mentioning topic, number of events, participants, and the type of stakeholders. So, for example, in this instance, organized 5 large conferences on human rights issues in the past 2 years, counting with the attendance of over 3,000 participants, including government stakeholders. Gustavo, you want to go to, or actually, let's give it a few. Oh, okay.
That's okay. We'll keep it there. It's important that people really understand a lot of the times you may not be able to quantify, but you can really tell operationally what you've done, what was the impact, right? Instead of just saying, you know, conducted webinars, if you are the person who conducts the research, prepares and assesses the data, let us know how much value you are adding. If you are the person organizing conferences, tell us the size of the conferences, how many, how much time, how many people, what are the topics. Let us know that this is aligned to the job that you're applying for. All right, there's one more example here. Sample number 4, assessed hundreds of resettlement cases on a monthly basis, conducted interviews and prepared refugee resettlement forms, responsible for reviewing and ensuring quality control of documents prepared by field staff and employees. Again, you are telling us you're adding color to how you can add value for the organization. Again, 15 seconds for you to read this example again. So now let's go to Nita. Nita, why do we have these action verbs there?
So thanks, Gustavo. Yeah, actually, as you can see on this slide, it is very important to use action verbs just to convey impact and demonstrate you are proficient at the activities you were assigned to. If you want to find more information on action verbs, you can actually just simply Google action verbs online and get the results. But I think you can have 15-20 minutes also to go through these, just briefly improve something, and by saying that, using the verbs as modified, standardized, converted, replaced, redesigned, straightened, customized, restructured, refined, updated, influenced, revamped. And then you have the category where you are leading a project or creating something, managing a team, or research, and all the relevant phrases and verbs associated with it. So please spend a little time just to go over it before we go to the next slide.
Very good. And just a brief disclaimer to all of you. These are best practices that you as a candidate and an applicant can use in any international organization, including the other sectors as well. However, it's important that you also understand that following these steps and tips, the ones provided here in this presentation, does not guarantee any outcome in UNHCR's recruitment processes, including but not limited to whether individuals will be longlisted or shortlisted for positions or be invited for assessment or interviews. Okay? This presentation focuses on best practices in multiple sectors, and its contents need to be adapted to different contexts. This means that this is not a formula we're giving you. We're giving you some tips for you to put your best foot forward. All right? Now we're going to look at some important information. Dora, what else can you tell us about what to do or what not to do when applying for jobs?
So I for sure can tell you that it is even more important to be truthful and realistic in your description of achievements. You lose credibility fast if the achievement does not align with your reported experience, job title, or organization. I remember seeing applications in the past from consultants claiming that they have led entire ERP projects in previous organizations. When I consulted with the hiring manager who actually knew of the applicant, it was quite clear she was not describing her accomplishments in a truthful manner at all. So if you happen to have assisted with a project instead, it is perfectly fine for you to use the term, for example, assisted in the development, or supported, or even collaborated with the team on, and then give the subject on what.
Very good. Thanks for that, Dora. Now we have some tips on how to align yourself, or how do you show alignment with UNHCR's mandate. It's really important that you know and understand the mandate of UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, and show how you align with it when you create a job application. Okay? One important thing is that you understand our employer value proposition, right? We are working together to build better futures for people forced to flee. All right. So what is your value proposition when it comes to wanting to join us? How do you articulate the way that you add value in a manner that you can make recruiters, hiring managers, written test assessors, and interview panel members understand that you are a fit? If we really look at this next slides here, we can have Nita telling us a few tips on how to create a letter of interest that may catch the attention of individuals that you want to be looked at by. Go ahead, Nita.
Right, so actually we won't provide you with a sample of a cover letter, since you can find plenty of them online, but we can show you how few pieces of information we expect to see in a coherent cover letter, and it breaks down to 3 parts: the introduction, the argument, and a closing. So for introduction, how do you align with our mandate, and what do you think you're a fit to make an impact? For argument, you can show evidence of accomplishments, don't regulate your resume, and how do you use your transferable skills. So you can break it down in this part of your application, which is basically the entry to each hiring manager when they see your applications. And then the closing part is basically reiterate your potential value add. I'd like to add one point here, because I'm closely following, or actually I was up to earlier, some of the questions on the comments, but of course we will leave it to the end, but because we are right at this topic right now, to the participants asking the question, how do I show a gap in my employment? I don't see it anywhere. Well, this part, the letter of interest part of your application is a perfect spot just to mention that you are taking break for your doctorate degrees, for example, your master's degrees, or just simply for studies or for personal growth or whatever the case may be. Obviously, you don't have to break it down to a personal level because it's none of our business. But because oftentimes a candidate forgets to fully complete an application, we are just curious why the last few years, and it's more important when nothing is shown on your application from 2018 onwards. It's not very attractive, so we definitely would like to see a brief information regarding that. So sorry, Gustavo, I just wanted to bring this up because again, some of the participants asked this question. So I think letter of interest is one of the great spots where you can mention your gaps if you've had any during your employments. And I think this is it. And I think it's back to you, Gustavo.
Very good. So we're going to go to the next slide, in which we have potential job fit questionnaires or questions that may be asked you as part of the application process, right? Emphasize your roles and responsibilities. So based on the roles and responsibilities, how do you show understanding of the position at the relevant level? Is it more strategic? Is it more operational? How do you show that when you are answering questions about the position? Leveraging technical knowledge based on the technical needs of the position. How do you show that you possess the level of knowledge required to do well in the job? And potential. How do you demonstrate potential based on past experiences and responses? So these are just some tips on helping you how to best answer potential job fit questionnaires, or those questions that you can find in the application process to support recruiters in identifying the individuals that show more fit for the position. Okay? We are going to round out this presentation with a few tips on the cover letter with Dora.
Yes, so let me give you a couple of final tips that I want to leave you with before we close our presentation. Of course, you can also find plenty more tips online by Googling cover letters, but let me just give you a few choice ones we selected for you. Be professional and straightforward. Your cover letter must be clear, well written, and properly formatted. Please avoid informal language. I probably don't have to say that, but let's just state the obvious. Use complete sentences with appropriate grammar and spelling. And finally, please follow instructions regarding cover letter and job application.
Very good, Dora. And before we go to the questions and answers, and we are at 13:09 Budapest time, meaning that we have about 7 minutes for questions or 6 minutes for questions. We want to let you know that we will be conducting a Preparing for Competency-Based Interviews webinar, probably late April, early May. And if you want to actually register for this event, all you need to do is to first follow the UNHCR main page on LinkedIn, or you can follow Dora. Dora, if that's okay, you may want to enter in the chat box your LinkedIn profile so you can the folks can follow you and get updates on upcoming events. Please be mindful that neither Dora, nor Nita, nor I, nor Margarida can provide any kind of updates on specific recruitment processes. Our goal on LinkedIn is to ensure that we direct applicants like you to resources. So if you want to receive information on our resources, please just follow us on LinkedIn, and hopefully you will be joining us soon for the Preparing for Competency-Based Interviews, okay? We are going to move now to the questions section. We have about 5 minutes. And one of the questions, and I think Nita would be a great person to answer that. Is the number of years of experience a deal breaker, Nita?
In a senior level or just to get into the organization?
Just to apply for a specific position. When they say that they want 5 years of experience.
Well, it is indeed. Yeah, well, it is indeed. If we are talking about a specific level, each have the required number of years of experience you have to meet. So if they require 5 years, most probably the role is at P3 level, and that means that you have to have a master's degree and 5 years of relevant work experience, or 6 years with bachelor's degree. So unfortunately, this is a set rule we cannot change, but if you go to our website, you will find actually within the careers a section called talent pool, and we have close to 30 talent pools open. And if you open any of them that matches with your profile, I suggest you to read through the job description that actually details for the different level of international category positions as to how many years you have to have in order to meet the certain level of requirements.
Very good, Nita. I have another question here that could go to you, to Dora. How do profile jobs work? What does it mean that someone is applying for a profile job? Is it a permanent position based on business needs? What does it mean?
Okay, I can answer if you don't mind.
Of
It's
course.
under my shop. Actually, the profile means talent pool. So as I've just mentioned, we have close to 30 talent pools. That basically means that our temporary appointments are normally not advertised, and which means we fill them from the talent pools. And for that, you would have to register, and basically the recruiter responsible for the profile will review your application, and based on your relevant experience, should you have it, you will be included into the talent pool. So once the potential temporary appointment, we just call it TA, comes up, the recruiter will review your profile, and should you be a good match, you will receive an email with following up on your interest in the position. And therefore, you can be proposed to the hiring managers and land a temporary job, which actually an easy ticket oftentimes to secure a fixed term position. And here I just would like to mention, I see some of the candidates, I recall the names, the participants that are our talent pool candidates. If you could please just use the emails that you receive emails from with follow-up questions, therefore we'll be able to answer your questions with regards to updating applications and such.
Very good, Nita. I have a question now. I think Dora will be a great person to answer that. Can I apply for any position which fit my qualifications and experience, or should I only apply for positions in the country where I have the right to work in?
Yeah, that's indeed a great question. And while we were giving the advice of, don't apply to countless positions, hoping, that one day luck might find you. This is a different case because here the candidate who posed this question, I assume, has really the right qualifications, the experience, so is meeting not just the basic eligibility requirements, but as Gustavo was sharing, much more than that. So in this case, I would encourage you to, yes, apply to more positions and not just okay, so if it's an international position, you should know that most often the first international professional position you apply to, it cannot be of the country of your nationality. So try to apply internationally to other countries. And other than that, just just always be sure that you really meet the requirements. You would be an outstanding good fit for the job, and then go ahead and apply to more, because competition is quite truthfully high. So you would not want to diminish your chances by only applying to, say, just one position.
But just in summary here, international professional positions are open to anyone who has citizenships with member states of UNHCR, which is pretty much all over the world. So anyone who fits the requirements can apply for international professional positions, or those positions that are considered at the international level, for example, international individual consultants. There are other types of positions that are for the local market, including general service positions and national officer positions. So for example, if you see a national officer position open in Hungary, you can only apply or be considered if you are a national of Hungary. But if you see an international professional position or an international individual contractor position or international consultant position in that country, you don't happen to be a citizen of that country, that's okay. You can apply. We do need to finish now. It is 13:15 Budapest time. We took about an hour and 15 minutes of your time today, and we do understand that you can look at many places of employment, but you decided to stick with us and learn more about us today. So we want to say thank you for your interest in UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. We also want to emphasize that we will be having a preparing for competency-based interviews webinar very similar to this one, in which we're going to walk you through the process. And for you to be able to follow and find us and register, all you need to do is actually follow us on LinkedIn. What I'm going to do right now is first to add the LinkedIn page for UNHCR in the chat box, so all of you can go there and follow our organization. And Dora, if that's okay with you, if you can also enter in the chat box your own LinkedIn page, the link, so folks can actually find you as well. Okay? On that note, we want to say thank you very much for all of you who joined us today, and we are looking forward to seeing you in other events. Thanks again to our outstanding speakers, Margarete, Nita. Thanks again to Dora, and we're looking forward to seeing your applications come through. Have a great day, and you will all receive the recording in the next few weeks. Goodbye from Budapest.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you,
All the
everyone.
best.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Have a lovely week. Bye.